So we begin with this breaking news story out of Guinea, which we've been covering for a few hours now. President Alpha Condé is reportedly being held by a group of soldiers. There's been heavy gunfire near the presidential palace in the capital, Conakry. The military has been deployed on the streets and is urging people to stay home. Now, a video has been circulating among local media in Guinea showing President Condé being detained by Army Special Forces. In the video, Condé is asked if he was tortured or mistreated, to which he responded, no. Now, let's show you where all this is happening. This is the presidential palace in the Kaloum business district of Conakry, where heavily armed soldiers have been seen guarding the area. The exact whereabouts of President Condé are unknown. It was earlier reported he was near the presidential palace at Hotel Kaloum. Joining us now on the phone is Yusuf Ba, a journalist in Guinea, joining us from Conakry. Yusuf, bring us up to speed with the situation. When we spoke earlier, you reported that gunfire was still ongoing in Conakry. What's been happening right now?
Presently, the situation is still confusing, still shooting going on. Just call another source now saying there's negotiation going on between the special force, some government officer. Seems like President Alpha Condé is in the hands of the members of the special force. There's another picture just now, another journalist just called my attention, told me President Alpha Condé was transported into a jeep, maybe to this particular area. And the Minister of Security office also is being surrounded by the special force. So it means this has been confirmed by myself. I'm seeing the special force surrounding the Ministry of Security office. The situation is very, very confusing, but negotiation is going on now. Maybe this is going to be like another situation, other neighboring countries where negotiation, we've seen negotiation going on between coup leaders and government officials.
Right.
So maybe this is the kind of thing that's going on in Guinea Conakry.
Right. Unclear, as you say, as to where the president is right now. Tell us about the reactions. Of course, this has been happening in Kaloum, which is the business district of Conakry. It is Sunday, so it wouldn't be as busy as it would be on a weekday. But there have been reactions. I mean, people are scared, but there have been celebrations, I understand, in some other parts of Conakry.
Yeah, in Bambeto area, commonly called the Arts of Conakry, the opposition stronghold, the people have been dancing, celebrating. They accept. It's like they welcome any coup, and they welcome all the social media messages that is going around that there is a coup d'etat. So it's very, very confusing. The other area where you have supporters of President Alpha Condé, everybody's indoors. Everybody's indoors. Nobody's outside. And a few people you are seeing out going to rushing to get food, like bread and other food stuff. The situation is very, very confusing. So I'm talking to you now, even where I'm standing.
Right.
Even journalists, I'm the only journalist standing around. Only TV5 journalists was around just now. It's like he's trying to escape the staff.
Okay, so a fluid situation. Thank you, Yusuf, for updating us on what's happening in Conakry. Let's bring in West Africa correspondent now, Nicholas Hack, who's also following events for us, is joining us live from Dakar. Yusuf, Nick, says there that there are some sorts of negotiations going on as far as President Condé is concerned. We don't know what's happened to him or where he is right now. Just give us some context, some background to all this. It's not the first time there's an attempted coup in Guinea. What could have led to this latest tension and unrest that we're seeing?
Well, Foley, there's been growing discontent against President Alpha Condé ever since he tweaked the Constitution, allowing him to run for a third term. And the outcome of this election that took place last November, that was contested by the opposition and civil society actors. And they took to the streets. And in response, there was a heavy-handed reaction, according to human rights groups and Amnesty, security forces shooting live ammunition towards protesters. And so ever since that election, there's been a situation of instability. It became the status quo for Guinea. And Alpha Condé had just a week ago passed a new bill in the parliament that irked a lot of people, especially members of the security forces, where he essentially allowed himself a pay increase for the presidency and himself, and a pay decrease for civil servants, including members of the security forces. Now, the gunfire that we've seen in Conakry, the battle that's been
Nicholas,
happening
I'm
in
so
this
sorry
area,
to interrupt you, because we're getting live pictures from a state television in Guinea right now, for the RTG, which is a state-owned television, and we see soldiers on TV right now addressing, it seems, the nation. The picture is frozen for a second, but hopefully we'll get it back on. They've been delivering a statement, it would appear. Unclear who these soldiers are, but a number of them, about 3, 6, 9, 10 soldiers on the national TV in Guinea right now, addressing the nation. This is, of course, pointing to the confusing situation. Let's try and listen in a bit, and I'll try to translate if I can.
Un système qui n'existe pas. Et ce système, il faut qu'on le fasse tous ensemble. Il y a eu beaucoup de morts pour rien, beaucoup de blessés, beaucoup de larmes. Alors qu'on aime tous la Guinée. Donc, je pense qu'il est temps pour nous de se comprendre, de se donner la main, de s'asseoir, d'écrire une constitution qui est adaptée à nos réalités, capable de régler nos problèmes. Parce que si vous voyez l'état de nos routes, si vous voyez l'état de nos hôpitaux, vous vous rendez compte qu'après 62 ans, qu'il est temps pour nous.
Okay, let me just translate a bit of what we've heard there from that army commander. Not clear what his rank is, but he says it's now time for Guinea to unite. It's time for us to create a new constitution which is capable of addressing the country's issues. This is increasingly looking like a coup d'etat, Nick Hack, with these soldiers now appearing on national television addressing the people of Guinea.
That's right. In fact, there's been a video circulating on social media where we see members of the Red Beret, the Presidential Guard, addressing people, addressing fellow soldiers to rally on their cause. And in that speech, they explained that there were too many deaths and that it's time to sit down, perhaps rewrite a constitution, adapted to the circumstances of Guinea, talking about the situation in hospitals and at schools. Essentially, during the rule of Alpha Condé, there's been a huge increase in the economic prospects. A country that's wealthy in iron ore and exports have been increasing rapidly, especially to China, Russia, and to Europe. But the circumstances of ordinary Guineans have gone from bad to worse. Most people live on less than $2 a day. They've struggled through the economic pandemic where there were heavy restrictions put in place. And many people who live just on $2 a day and that get by on a day's wage, well, they weren't able to survive. And also the heavy-handedness of the security forces and this sense amongst a portion of Guinea's population that they weren't being represented by Alpha Condé. Remember, during the last election, the Office of the United Nations Watch on Genocide pointed out that Alpha Condé should calm down on his rhetoric, his ethnic rhetoric in this country where the Fulanis make up the majority, but the Malinke, from which he is have taken up key position in the government and security forces. So there was growing division within society there.
Okay, we've lost, have we lost it? We still have those pictures from RTG, the national broadcaster in Guinea. Well, they're leaving now. The people who were speaking from the army, unclear who's in charge right now. I know you've watched a lot of the same videos as I have, Nick, of these soldiers, Red Berets, who are the Presidential Guard, of course. Is it clear now who's in charge? Who do we see in that video, you think, of these soldiers speaking on national television?
Well, what's interesting is we've seen the Red Berets, the presidential guards that are meant to protect the president, now holding the president under arrest. But we've also seen the elite special forces that have been on the ground, it seems, coordinating with these Red Berets. And one name has been floating around social media, Mamadou Doumbouya, who is the head of the special forces, a former French legionnaire who came in 2018 to reinforce these special forces forces, and he's been accused by the government, who saw him with suspicion, of trying to move away from the Ministry of Defense to gain greater independence, and seen as perhaps a foe to the president. But what's clear in this message and this action that we've seen of these special forces, these armed forces, that they feel that the civilian rule or the democratic way isn't representing Guineans, and they felt that they should take over power to bring what they believe is a new Guinea, a feeling perhaps emulating what happened in a neighboring country, in Mali, where we've seen the military takeover when there was a popular uprising and popular protests against the president there. We have to remember fully that in Guinea there's been protest for the last year that you and I have been covering in the region, protesting the rule of Alpha Condé, and that may explain why these emboldened soldiers took to what they're doing right now.
Let me just remind our viewers, Nick, of what we're watching right now. These are the latest pictures coming to us from Guinea state broadcaster RTG. It is now past 5 p.m. in Guinea, 5:12 p.m. It's GMT time. No, actually 5:12 p.m. here in Doha, so that's 14:12 p.m. GMT in Guinea, and soldiers have appeared on national television addressing Guineans and saying that now is the time for Guinea to unite and create a new constitution that would address the country's problems. As Nick Hack said there, this increasingly looks like a coup d'etat against President Alpha Condé. And this coup reportedly has been led by Lieutenant Colonel Doumbouya, who has been, we understand, speaking on national television. He said that borders of the country have been closed and the current constitution of Guinea has been suspended until a new one is created. As Nick Hack said, this is not the first time there's been a coup attempt in Guinea. Unclear as to the extent of the success of this one, because we still don't know the whereabouts of President Alpha Condé. Nick, stand by. We'll bring you in just a second. In the meantime, let's speak to Marie-Roger Biloa, who's CEO of Africa International Media Group, and she's joining us via Skype from Paris. I imagine the French watching what's happening in Guinea very closely, Marie-Roger, given that it's one of their former colonies and a lot of French interests in that country. Does this coup, or attempted coup, if we may call it that, come as a surprise to you?
Well, of course, obviously, it's very much people are following very closely what is happening here in Guinea. I must say, since election earlier this year, the tension has grown, and it's not. It did not become lower, the tension, and the situation in Mali was also an incentive something. And we have been hearing of rumors of coup a couple of weeks ago, and we sort of, it's always surprising when it really happens. And what we know so far is that the head of the special forces, Mr. Doumbouya, had an argument yesterday with the Minister of Defense. And it had been alluded to the bad relationship they had together, and then that started early this morning. And what we believed is that he could not rally all the security forces of Guinea, and that he was mastering only the special forces, but it doesn't seem to be true. But still, they could capture the president. They have the president in their hands, in their custody. But there is a communique of the Minister of Defense saying, well, they are still fighting. There's an attempted coup. It didn't work. They are urging everyone to...
Unclear right now, even though we're seeing these pictures of these soldiers on national television, which is very often what happens in many African countries in that region anyway. When a coup happens, the soldiers go on TV and say, OK, we've done this, we're now in charge. But at this stage in Guinea, it's unclear who is in charge or whether this coup has been successful or not, the army in Guinea, to what extent has it been united around President Condé? That has been, many people would say, his strength in all these years as he's been in power, including during this controversial third term, has been his ability to maintain the army around him, surround himself with a strong army. But now these cracks seem to have appeared within the military.
Yes, and the special forces were, let's say, they are considered the Malinke, same ethnic group,
as the president, indeed.
And he was trusting them, obviously. But I must say, this third term was not settled yet, unlike Cote d'Ivoire, where there was also a third term issue. But you see political life reviving. Laurent Gbagbo came back. They are creating new parties, new coalition. But
Marie-Roger, it's interesting that you talk about Ivory Coast, and I want to ask you something about that. I mean, there are those who say, the cynics anyway, would say that the difference between Ivory Coast and Guinea and the fact that Alassane Ouattara was able to go on with this third term is that because he had the backing of the former colonial power, France. To what extent is or was France still supporting Alpha Condé?
Yeah, okay. France is not at all supporting Alpha Condé. That is true. That the relationship is very different with President Ouattara. And as a matter of fact, President Alpha Condé in France for over 2 years, which is unusual. Mm-hmm. He just came back from holiday in Turkey or some other places, not France anymore. And I know there were forces around him trying to reconcile Alpha Condé with France. And even this week, I meet with people who were speaking about that, said we cannot go on having that bad relationship with France. What can happen exactly? So that was a concern.
Okay.
So I trust that the military special forces knew that President Condé won't have any backing from France if they do the coup.
Okay, interesting to talk to you about this. Of course, we are in unknown territory here as far as what is happening in Conakry and what's going to happen. Marie-Roger Biloa, thank you so much for joining us.